and welcome to the latest episode of the Retail Exchange podcast. I'm Jason Bradbury. In this, the second of a two-part special exploring innovation in digital signage technology. I'm here at the amazing space that is Samsung KX in Coaldrops Yard, London, to talk to senior retail industry professionals who know a thing or two about what it takes to create a blueprint for digital signage success for anyone wanting to think big and do better. I'm delighted to be joined by a stellar panel of guests to explore the now, that's you guys, and the next in digital signage solutions, the trends, the technology, and the challenges for businesses as they seek to make informed, strategic decisions that will shape customer experience and engagement in 2022 and well beyond. With me, I have from Trust Systems Sales Director Andy Fox. Good to see you, Andy.
Afternoon.
And Commercial Director Mike Dowson from Samsung. Head of Business Development Steve Robertson. Hello, Steve. And Business Development Manager for Display at Samsung, John Bathgate. And on the end, it's Chris Dewar, Key Account Manager at Ergonomic Solutions. Gentlemen, welcome. Andy, look, there's no doubt that businesses need to change in line with evolving consumer habits. It's the landscape is changing beneath our feet, isn't it? How are changing consumer behaviours influencing particularly digital signage, your strategies as you roll out?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. The market is massively evolving. Customers and consumers are wanting to buy and engage with organisations in different ways. A digital channel and digital strategy really gives retailers, businesses an opportunity to engage how and in real time with customers in how they want to sort of buy, get informed and in sort of engage with that brand.
How do they want to buy? How are they changing?
So I think we're clearly seeing a much more omni-sort of channel environment. We're seeing much more sort of digital buying behaviours such as online, that e-commerce world coming into the more retail environment and therefore being able to sort of move that digital experience into a store, into an ordering process. In a sort of brick environment, that is how the retailers have to embrace the digital strategy.
What do you see as your kind of critical success factors?
So I think when you are engaging in a digital strategy, the critical success factor is really sort of understanding what your objectives are. What do you want to achieve by engaging with your customers? What is the ROI you're looking for? Who are the stakeholders within your organisation that are going to want to influence and benefit from that digital media? Then you have to sort of consider the sort of environmental conditions, the infrastructure that you're putting that digital signage in, the location, where is it best to sort of engage and get the most value and return on that investment for your organisation. There's various factors and we as an organisation, through our experience, we look to sort of help on that journey and help organisations to embrace and make the most of that digital strategy.
So Mike, just for the sake of clarity, we talked briefly about what Trust Systems do in episode 1 of this podcast, but I want you just to sketch out for people listening and watching at home, exactly what it's all about.
Yeah, so I think our responsibility as a solution provider is not to dictate, it's to challenge and to listen. We've got a wealth of experience in our business. Some of that goes back longer than I'd care to mention in some cases, but for us, it's about reaching into an organisation and looking for their gaps, their challenges, and their opportunities, and then bringing it together with some core fundamental things, such as an enterprise bus, which is your network. And if you haven't got a secure, capable, and dynamic network that you can shift data with quality, with security, and with real-time experiences, then you're nowhere. And for us, that's a core skill that we bring to the party. When I look at opportunities in the retail store businesses today, they've been challenged massively, and in a good way, by the e-commerce experience that everybody has embraced right across the globe. So it's not just unique to your local high street, whether it's your village shop or your supermarket or your hyper stores. The whole of the retail channel in the high street, in the destination environments have been challenged. But what the digital screen business brings to the party. And what the tool sets that we've now got today bring to the party is that we can get rid of cardboard. That's a green initiative. We can get rid of old news. How many times have you walked into a store in the last few years and seen Easter eggs and it's now nearly Christmas? How many times have you seen Happy Valentine's Day and it's now the 3rd of March?
It's the customer...
you're confusing your customer.
I agree. It's the customer version of the playlist. You know, when I worked in retail in the 80s, and I remember, even now, it's still ingrained in my mind, the playlist. It was the same playlist for like 5 years, and it's effectively been the same for consumers, hasn't it? The signage has been exactly the same, unchanging, sometimes for years.
Well, I think one of the things that we really need to shake up is making it relative, making it personalised, making it real. Why promote something that you don't have enough stock in the store to promote? Why display a price that's not competitive? Why shout something from the rooftops that's not relevant because it's raining outside or it's 90 degrees on the high street? You've got to have that ability to be agile. And what the technology that Samsung and other partners that we bring together in this collaborative space give us is that ability to deliver something that's real, something that's substantial, and as Andy pointed out, has got ROI on it.
I was going to say there is a return on investment for that.
There has to be. You can't just do this for vanity.
No.
You know, businesses are businesses and they're being challenged. You know, the biggest challenges that businesses have got today is the cost of people. The second biggest challenge is the cost of real estate. So anything that you put into that environment for both the people, the store colleagues, and the customers to view and use has to have a very, very effective cost base. And one of the things that we've managed to do by getting a collaborative group of professionals with great products and great services and capability and knowledge is that we brought that together. And we're very proud to say we've been tested by some of the biggest retailers in the planet, and we've got something that is fit for purpose, and that's why it's going, and that's why it's rolling, and we want to do more of it.
So I was chatting to you, Andy, earlier about that really cool contactless payment screen.
We were, yeah.
I was also looking at one of your digital signage devices is behind us there. I'm interested just to understand a little bit about how the content that we're talking about gets there. Who controls it? Because obviously your end client, the retail experience, they're going to have a lot to say about what goes on that screen. Who controls the content?
Well, the content ultimately comes from the customer, their branding, their messaging, the information that they want to sort of display out through that engagement channel. But ultimately, now with the use of the Samsung technology of Magic Info, we as Trust Systems can manage that content and the delivery of that content, that real-time dynamic content for our customers, enabling them to be really agile and be really responsive to give the right messaging across various different medias, whether that's the same messaging from a e-commerce site to a digital display, get a lot of that content and deliver it real time across those multiple sort of digital channels. So that's one of the massive value adds of the Samsung system on Magic Info system on chip solution, enabling it to be cloud managed and controlled to deliver the messaging to the right screen at the right time to look to engage that audience. And that's the big value that a managed service partner such as Trust Systems can really provide to a lot of our customers.
And what are the customers doing, Mike? How are they innovating?
So about 4 years ago, we sat down with the clients who wanted to take the challenge on, looked at the cost, or the cost that they assumed and presumed or had been presented by others. And we said, right, okay, the first thing we've got to do is understand what have you got as a data lake? What assets have you already got? How can we sweat those? How are they being created? So we set up a fantastic working group between their digital marketing agency, who obviously had a huge stake in this. They've been, they wanted to be at the table. And what we were able to do, working with Samsung, is say, right, these are the capabilities of the technology. This is how far you can stretch your digital content. Yes, you can go to animation. Yes, you can go to moving visuals. And what we did is we tested that, and we worked really hard to really stretch the limits of the technology. Don't just give me a small JPEG with a standard image that you think is going to be acceptable. Really go for it, because the one thing that the clients and the customers want to see is that collaboration of what they see in the digital channel, that going back to that e-commerce experience, it has to be as good, if not better, in the real world. So when they walk in that store, it's got to resonate. It's got to be, wow, that's what I saw when I was browsing last night. Oh yeah, that's what I saw on the TV advert. And there it is shining in front of me. Oh, and the message is relevant. Oh, and actually, it's changed. It's new. Wow, there's something else out today. And that's where we're working with the digital marketing specialists to accelerate that data in real time to the consumers.
And this is a bit off topic, but I'm interested. As a dad, you must.
I'm a dad.
You must have noticed, as I have, that the way that the generation coming up behind us experience content, digital content, is so much more energetic than it was, when you and I first started interacting with, digital signage or information in store and so on and so forth. How is your system rising to that challenge? What I mean specifically is the amount of content, the speed of the content. Is this something that you
I think
have a strategy for?
Yeah, yes, we do. And actually, we're having to shape and adapt because more is demanding. It's really interesting. It's a bit like a fantastic beer. If you give it to one person, it gets consumed slowly and they're thinking about it. And then they tell somebody else. And the next minute, somebody drinks that twice as quick. And then your production line's got to get better.
Right.
And then they want it slightly colder. And somebody else wants it with a tweak and a change. We have a production line. And I talk about this digital triangle between client. I've got these products. I've got these activities. I've got these marketing initiatives. They're communicating back to their content creators. And then they're coming back to us as a collaboration group to deploy that for them. And what we're seeing is they trial it. So COVID was a fantastic test for the platform. I've got some Welsh-speaking stores. I've got to get some messages out because there's different rules going on in Wales to that we've got in the UK. So I can't have one message for the whole country. Within hours, we were displaying new content. Within hours, not next day, sometime at the weekend. And then what was happening is that marketing team and that communications team were going, hey, hang on, we're onto something here. And then, good and bad happens in the world. An unfortunate situation arises where, HRH, Prince Philip passed. Within a very short space of time, a short 10-minute memorial for one client was put together. And we was able to have that moment of reflection on his day of his funeral and pass out something that was heartfelt, planned, but relevant. It was relevant. It wasn't something that was, sort of thrown together and hope it happens. And that, I think, shows the agility of the platform. After 10 minutes, we were back to business as usual. And what they're now doing is they're driving more and more challenges to us. I'm seeing an increase, a steady increase.
Yeah, as they're accelerating the flexibility.
As they're going, hey, hang on, yes, we can do this. We're a sales business, we're a managed service company. Obviously, we've pitched the benefits. That's what we're doing here today. But sometimes people can't quite realize what they mean because they've got to get their toe in the water. And we're not asking somebody to swim the lake. We're asking somebody to paddle and then take a bathe. And that acceleration of thirst and demand for stretching the digital abilities of the platform are coming thick and fast.
And that's an exciting thing for you, though.
Oh, it's fantastic because at the moment, everything we've built, because we've got that technology layer, the infrastructure, we're managing the network, we're managing the quads of data input. One of the really great things that Samsung has allowed us to do for all the clients that are interested is we got away with plastic and copper. So we don't cable plastic and copper back to a switch to move data around. We're using wireless networks. Now, system-on-chip technology is a lifeblood for innovation because all of a sudden, in a big deployment, you're taking hundreds and possibly millions of pounds out of a deployment. You're not filling up switch ports and putting demand on other enterprise environments. And that, for us, starts driving ROI, it starts driving quick time to market, it gets deployments done quicker and easier. So it just simplifies what digital technology should be all about, and that is getting something out there now.
I love it. And this is data-driven, right? You're not just doing this blue sky thinking. You have hard data that drives the decisions you make.
Absolutely, yeah. And the biggest challenge is we are working with partners, our customers, our retail clients, who are constantly challenged to drive cost down in the business. So we can't just come up with something that says, hey, look at this, it's fantastic, but it's a gazillion pounds, and they'll just empty their pockets. That's never going to happen. You've got to start driving a whole host of supply chain solutions. It's not just about the technology. During COVID, we are being hit constantly by, there's a silicon shortage. So how do we manage supply chain? How do we keep up with the demand and the thirst for digital? Ergonomic are taking forward prices on steel and glass to enable us to build bulletproof enclosures that are fit for purpose, for safe.
Work even when a car comes through the front of the
Absolutely.
Shop. Something I was introduced to. That's a real thing that happened, right?
Well, I have to say we were talking more about children standing on benches and shaking them and possibly dropping them on them.
Yeah.
But cars entering the store at speed wasn't part of the sign-off process.
The design brief.
But there you go. Thankfully, we built them to such a high level that probably saved lives that day. And, if anybody wants to look out there on the social channels, you'll find it.
That video is out there somewhere. Andy, what are the merits of content management?
The management of content management, I'm going to extend that to the merits of cloud content management, I think is the really important piece, is about controlling that at a sort of central global level, with the ability then to deliver that content to the right screen at the right time. And not only just about delivering it, but it's about reporting on it. It's about reporting in terms of what's played, in terms of making sure that the content that you think you're delivering out there and your customers are engaging with is actually sort of being received. So giving retailers the ability to have different messaging managed and delivered to different screens, whether it's regional, as Mike was saying earlier about delivering content in a particular country or a particular region. Cloud managed content gives you that ability to sort of really be very targeted and very direct with the messaging to particular areas.
It's about agility, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You can respond, not over time. You can respond, as you say, instantly to, say, weather. Or, I came through London yesterday, and there was a tube strike, and the result was huge. The streets were full of people, and of course it was also in the middle of a storm, so it was really rainy. It was chaos to get anywhere. I had this electric skateboard, which is probably not the safest way of getting across London in the wet. But the sorts of information that people need in a store at 4 o'clock when they're thinking of maybe going home, when suddenly their travel arrangements have been altered, you could potentially supply that information.
Absolutely, but what about actually keeping it real and down to everyday experiences in a shop where actually you've got a bunch of product that you want to get out there in a to sell, so whether it's marked down or whether you've got hot cross buns or Easter eggs or whatever it might be, actually it's about being agile enough to get that product out to your market to make sure people are aware of it, that it's in store, that it's ready to purchase. That ability to manage that content in a real-time, agile fashion will have a demonstrable effect and benefit for increasing customer experience, satisfaction, and actually basket spend.
I love it. I'm fascinated. I could carry on talking about this, but I'm going to move on now. I want to welcome Steve and Jonathan, both from Samsung, into the fold. Good to see you. Good to see you again, Steve. So I guess the first question I'll put to you, Jonathan, if I may. Where do you start when it comes to finding the right partner?
Okay, so that's a great question, because if you look at how Samsung does business, we actually deal indirectly, if you like, with our end users. Therefore, we rely very heavily on a fantastic ecosystem of partners, and those partners tend to have real specialization within, say, a retail or a supermarket environment, or maybe a hospitality or a transport environment. So when our relationship started, I think around about 2018, it wasn't so much let's look at prices and product, it was let's look at what is the value that we can take to market. So I'm a business development manager, so for me it's about getting to know the partner or the integrator, and also educating them about our business. So rather than just products, we went into a whole stage of processes around welcoming the partner to our demo centre, meeting the end user in some early exploratory meetings to get a feel for their business. And this is way before we put pricing or products on the table. Also, other facilities that we sort of initiate are things like use of the demo centre that we have in the UK and Europe, and facilities like this, for example, and also products so that testing can begin. I think the most important feature around this partnership was around actually education around our Magic Info software, which was about, let's have a play with the software, let's see how it feels, how it works, how we can package it, and ultimately make a successful business out of this.
Can I ask you about the Magic Info software?
Yeah.
Just sketch it out a little bit for our listeners, viewers, just to make it a little clearer.
Yeah. Along with display products like Samsung products, we have our own system, which is the software content management system called Magic Info. That's our brand of software. So when we find an opportunity, we can either sell hardware, but hopefully hardware and software, because it's a much more solution spread opportunity. So Magic Info basically takes the information that Andy described earlier, which is the content that the customer creates through their creative agencies, and gives the system integrator or the partner the ability to schedule the information, put the information on screen at the time they want, advertise special promotional products at the price that they think will be successful, and also other important aspects like prove that they've played a certain number of times a day or month so that you can back it up to the business. And that's where the clever things comes in, the scheduling, the content. It's all about, our hardware effectively is the platform for that clever software and content to play.
It's a match made in heaven, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We saw it as a game changer.
Yeah.
I mean, we really did. It really was a marriage made in heaven.
Steve, what are the problems about integrating all of this technology?
I guess the integration part, and there was another part, in fact, that all three of the chaps have just spoken to now. It's that upgrade path, isn't it? What does that upgrade path look like? What are they trying to achieve? Are they going from simply something like a paper or cardboard-based in-store experience to something that's digital, or are they trying to maintain some continuity between their web presence and their now in-store presence? That's a massive challenge, actually, and one we spoke about earlier.
We did. We talked about it in the context of colour.
Yeah.
About how the corporate blue or green or whatever it is, in some print material, looks very, very different on a RGB screen, doesn't it?
Yeah, quite right. And then so that's when the technology within the screen can help deliver that Pantone match or the RGBs as we spoke about. And then the integration really does come from the partnership piece that John's really referring to, which is where we need to partner with the likes of with Trust to deliver it. That brings the whole system and I guess the vision that the customer has to life as well, right? So we can then integrate the software, our technology, and also a lot of the analytics that Trust's system develops.
What Samsung has always got right. I mean, I'm a fan of other brands. I just put that out there.
Yeah.
But I have to admit that I have several Samsung products, and I'm aware of your kind of design ethos. There's a real lifestyle feel to what you do. This KX space that we're in today is a really great example of that. I'm interested to know, though, about when you're putting digital signage into retail environments. You want it to serve an informative purpose, don't you? You want to get the message out there, but you also want it to be a bit artistic, a bit aspirational. Is that difficult?
I think it's effectively part of the Samsung sort of family of products, if you like, in the way that we work. So, we represent one particular part of the Samsung family, which is display, but we have very close links with the mobile world, domestic appliances, mobile. You can see all that around here as well, all the individual facets.
It's almost like it's full of art here, isn't it?
And I think what that gives us as well is, we talked about the end-to-end solution. It gives us the ability to work with other parts of the organisation. For example, we have a finance division where we can talk about these large projects and dilute that down into Samsung Capital solutions, which are backed up by the global organisation. also, one of the benefits of having the range of products is that we have a very fine-tuned support organisation in the UK, Europe and globally, where the 3-year warranty, the 5-year warranty, next business day swap out adds to the benefit of effectively, taking our product to market and provisioning on Samsung. You have an environment where you can actually have a swap out the next day. So if something fails, we swap it out the next day. That's part of the warranty. So I think the benefits we get from that end-to-end solution make us, deliver those USPs to our partners like Trust and to their major projects.
Can I talk about COVID? It was a game changer in so many respects, but particularly for what you're doing in terms of the messaging that was required almost overnight. What lessons do you draw from that?
Yeah, well, I think actually that further enhances the need for, as John mentioned, Magic Info with content management system, being able to deliver that consistency of message. It's not just for staff, but also for customers wanting a safe and secure environment as well. So, again, Magic Info allows you to deliver that in a very timely and deliberate manner. I think Samsung, like many other consumer electronics companies out there, experienced the delays and shortages as well, but everyone's been able to pivot in some way, shape or form, isn't it? We spoke as well earlier about the emergence of those native players within the digital world that are now starting to make more of or want more of a footprint in the traditional bricks and mortar. So they can obviously see that opportunity. We've seen that massive surge in streaming. So the players such as Netflix and TikTok, how they will become more influential within the retail space as well. So
yeah, to a certain extent, they're defining a new way, aren't they, of consuming information. I mean, sometimes my 14-year-old is in the same room as me, and I almost get a kind of shell shock based on the amount of completely different content that he's been through in the space of sort of 5 minutes. And it's clear that he gets meaning from that. He can understand that. As the director is smiling, he's clearly you've got a 14-year-old, haven't you? There is a very distinct cultural difference in terms of how they absorb information. That's what I was getting to actually with you, Mike. But I think you are uniquely positioned actually to make that change. It's fascinating stuff. Can I get some key insights, some tips, if you like, into the best ways of implementing digital signage in a way that ultimately is successful? Some tips from the top.
Okay, so when you're looking at major rollouts, obviously it's a number of services, hardware, software, the testing, the support factors. One thing for me, though, that I've learnt from dealing with several vertical markets really is to make sure that we absolutely understand the end user's business drivers. So, for example, we do dozens of pilots that effectively go nowhere because we don't tie up the pilot with the metrics that deliver success for that project. So very early on in some of our trust projects, we worked out that we would have to look at return on investment. We would have to work with the end user around how we're going to get kids looking down on their mobiles to look up at the displays and be influenced, and therefore to equal a transaction and a loyalty, if you like. But also we set out some very strict parameters around the pilots to make sure that we were measuring if a product is advertised in a promotion, how much revenue do we get from that timescale during the pilots? And that was very measured in trust with Aldi, for example, in that major project. And from other areas that I work in, I've also worked on return on investment being made on the increase in percentage, for example, that a digital drive-through has over a poster drive-through, or the fact that effectively 1 in 4 transactions are affected by a digital vision rather than a poster. So we know that people engage, and therefore if you understand that and you correlate that return of investment into the project, you're likely to be successful. If you're not connecting your pilots to return on investment, then many projects simply don't fly.
No, it's absolutely fascinating. I want to jump to my favourite topic now, and that's just a little bit of future gazing. I'll start with you, Steve. Could you just sketch out a little bit of a vision for what we can expect, where it's going? We talked briefly about it in
Yeah, we did.
Seeing as we're in, a great example of the store of the future, where is the experiential retail thing going?
Yeah, well, we spoke about things like the affordability of some of the technology now and where it's going, particularly the emergence of LED. We've obviously got this tremendous backdrop here, right? And we also spoke, that you said about technology being aspirational. That should be aspirational, but equally it should be attainable, shouldn't it? For if it's not the tier one and major brands, and then you have got some of these other pop-up stores that are starting to emerge. As I mentioned before, you've got those where they're native to the digital world and they're starting to proliferate now into to shopping centres in more of a pop-up variety, but they are now investing in bricks and mortar. How do they deliver something like this? And actually, we think they're ideally positioned to make sure that their digital and in-store experience is really on point. We spoke about things like augmented reality and VR, and how that could potentially start to drip feed into the in-store experience. Buying habits as well, and what are the drivers for? You spoke about your son, right? And what motivates him and his buying journey compared to what the bulk of this panel's buying journey would look like, are going to be entirely different. So that goes back to what we talked about, the relevance of content, isn't it? How do we trigger that buying behaviour? How do we provide a connected experience as well when they're in site? And I know Andrew mentioned about omni-channel. The technology that has been used, or the device or the platform, should not be a barrier to making that purchase, should it?
Yeah, that's right.
And also
facilitate it.
That experience, we shouldn't underestimate the importance of the experience, and if you don't get that right, the cost of that. At what cost? And we spoke about loyalty and all these good things. So whilst it doesn't give you that doesn't answer the question completely.
It very much does.
But it's more about where some of the ways in which I think companies could potentially pivot during, not just now, but as you're coming down the track.
Yeah. Can I throw you an example?
Yeah, please.
One of the hardest hit businesses on the high street for a long time has been the travel companies, because everything's gone online.
Absolutely.
We can buy holidays while we're on the tube. Well, if you've got connectivity, of course. But could you imagine using this type of technology, but in a scaled version, where you could drop somebody onto a beach?
Into the Caribbean.
Into the Caribbean, and give them a sensual experience, whether that's with VR technology, but with screen technology like this today, you can get a feel for it. You could get a walk through your hotel. You could get a walk through the hotel room or the villa that you're thinking about staying in. Get a feel for the culture. A walk down the high street in Palenza or in Hawaii or something.
You've got to get them into the store. And the reason is coming from retail in the 80s, back in the day, I was passionate about, I worked at Next, and I was passionate about that job. It kept me in bread and cheese for 2 years as a student, but I was also really bothered about doing well and learning the black art of sales. You wouldn't think so, would you? Gift of the gab and all that. And what seems evident to me is that certainly in terms of the travel example, those travel agents have often been to the location that you're talking about. They really know what they're talking about, and I want to know from a human being, what's it like? What's it like for the kids? Is it safe? And all those sorts of things. But the issue is that you get drawn in to the kind of Googleization of buying a holiday, and you miss that human interaction. But if your high street store has got this unique technology, if there's a buzz about it, if it's an experience, then you're going to go. Then you're going to get the benefit of that. And
when somebody's going shopping for a holiday now, the first thing they do is they jump on Google Maps and they drop themselves into the middle of the swimming pool and they're having a look around. Well, you need to do that in the high street.
Yeah.
But you can do it in a much more sensory way.
Yeah.
You can do it on, landscape version, not on a small tablet. You can do it in style. And that's going to draw people back into that gregarious and that sharing of information and back into the old buying habits, but aided and abetted with digital technology.
I love it.
I think actually, just to extend on that, I think digital signage there is to enhance the customer experience. When we were talking earlier about the self-checkout example of digitization, in a store or hospitality environment, what you're enabling that operational part of the business to do is actually release staff from behind a till.
It is.
And actually put
it's
staff...
not anti-staff. you're refocusing the resources, aren't you?
Absolutely. Move them from behind the till to actually a front of house customer service experience. Greeting customers, actually making sure the shelves are stocked, making sure that customers got the right product in the right size, assisting the sale, and therefore actually the checkout is just a transactional digital transaction rather than a customer engagement of when you've already decided to purchase something. Moving that operational cost to front of house will absolutely enhance the customer experience, and that's aided by digital signage.
That's fantastic stuff. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to move to the chap on the end. Chris, good to have you with us. You must have been thinking, when's it my turn?
Now.
Okay.
Here we go.
Talk to me. I was going to say I'm going to give you 2 words, but I think it might be one. Spacepole.
It is one word. You're absolutely right. It is one word.
Explain.
So the concept behind Spacepole is to take pieces of technology and modularise them to make them fit in different environments. So the concept could be taking a 55-inch screen, which could be deployed in an indoor, an outdoor environment, from a ceiling, from the floor, from the wall. It enables us through a series of modular-based systems to deploy the technology in different areas that will fit the different clients and customer base that we all work with. So from our perspective, that's how we add value in relation to the extra pieces of this. And I touched on before how effectively we're the final piece of the puzzle when it comes to the implementation, and how the whole concept of this being more than a screen, having the content management system, and then effectively the place within that location where it makes the most sense to deploy.
So in terms of the location, to bring it down to earth, what about the health and safety concerns around deploying these relatively large, solid, strong objects?
As you can imagine, retail can be a little bit of a jungle or a zoo, with kids running around, wanting to climb on the counters, climbing up hills. Sure. Our background as Ergonomic Solutions has always been to have retail-hardened solutions. So we very much look at these type of real-life concerns that our customers have and how we can best address them. It was touched upon earlier, one of our scanners like this, shop and go type of stores being converted into a drive-through, not by design. From our perspective...
All right, the car coming through the window, yeah.
From our perspective, this is absolutely a real-life problem. And what is in place to make sure that these customers are safe if this was to happen during the day? Having a whopper of a screen fall on you because it hasn't been deployed sensibly or properly is a danger to life.
And a retailer might not even think about those considerations.
Absolutely.
You've got to kind of design ahead of that, haven't you?
Absolutely. Jason, just very quickly, mentioned obviously about the drive-through. Same principle in relation to QSR space and digitalising these drive-throughs. How often do people drive into billboards in a drive-through? I imagine it's quite high. So having that retail-hardened ability or retail-hardened technology in your estate really does add the extra value and future-proof your solution.
Okay, so retail-hardened, which is my new couplet, by the way. I'm going to try and use that in other areas of my life. Yeah. But the issue you've got there is it's still got to be aesthetic, hasn't it? It's still got to work within the form of, and very precise branding of a retail environment. What challenges do you have there? What examples do you have where you've done a particularly good job of integrating these retail-hardened structures
I don't know.
seamlessly?
No idea. I mean, from the perspective of... I'll touch very quickly on the brand. As we move, and you asked this earlier around what does the store of the future look like? Today, we still have belted checkouts in stores, particularly in Tier 1 supermarkets. We're seeing more and more of those belted checkouts be removed from the supermarkets and be replaced by self-service devices. Going forward, those self-service devices will be removed from the equation, and it will all be done on your phone. And we're seeing major players in the retail space start to deploy.
Well, they're all nodding to that. That's really interesting to me. I do love this idea of a kind of image recognition camera system, being aware that I've picked up a particular device or my phone scanning the device. What's the time frame for that? Sorry to stop you in mid-flow. We'll come back to it. But what are we talking? When are we going to see that implemented in a way that most people will have had 1 or 2 shops within their local area?
So at the
here
moment
now.
today,
Now.
Here now.
Yeah.
it's here now, absolutely. And
Yeah.
we're seeing, certainly in the UK, I believe at least 6 of the major supermarket chains are now certainly piloting or already deploying this type of technology. Predominantly at this moment in time, it is around, we touched on this point earlier, the convenience of being in a city centre. So it's the people in a rush who are out on their lunch break, who need that sandwich quickly to get back to the office. It's that type of environment which we're seeing evolve first. And with the removal of things like point of sale checkouts, belted checkouts, all the floor space that is freed up to these retailers to enable them to push more products out into the market. And also, they're going to need more ways to interact with their customers now that there isn't necessarily that physical people-to-people interaction in a store. So this is where digital really adds credence to the retail shopping experience.
Yeah.
It's absolutely extraordinary. I'm so inspired by this.
I think possibly to add to that, although these technologies are here and they're usable, there's a balancing factor around personal data that needs to be taken into account. So does a supermarket, for example, want to have that information about its customers banding around? Yes, it might help sell to a certain age group or a certain product, but there are a lot of sensitivities around that type of facial recognition, age recognition, who's going for what product and how that information is used. So we work very closely with our partners to work out whether these are real implementable solutions, if you like, or whether we need to sort of get the basics right and then add other layers of solution onto the basic platform. So you've got to take into account the sensitivity, I think, around personal data there.
I was going to say that I'm inspired, but I'm also aware of the concerns that consumers have.
Yeah, I think our job as managed service providers in this space is to collaborate with people who can desensitize that data. So make it agnostic, make it anonymous. Everything that we're doing in that space is all about that data propagation and that data creation has to be managed in a very solid fashion. Obviously, everybody's aware these days of those lovely GDPR rules and regulations that have been brought about for very, very good reason. And I think once you go into the sight and sound elements of GDPR, where it's not just a few words on a database about who I am, how old I am, what generation I belong to. Once you're looking at facial and sound data, that again has to have this layer of security, has to have the layer of trust. And I know that sounds a little bit of a play on words for us, but that's what we're about. It's about taking that very sensitive, very private data and putting it into environments that you can't abuse it, that you can't access it, either at all or unnecessarily. About 6 years ago, we put together a solution of that ilk that now has millions of public records in it. Only once in that time have we ever been asked to access that data. And I didn't, as the owner of the business, I didn't even have access to it. And we had to go through so many protocols to detune the data to get back to something that was actually usable. And that was actually for a security question that came from the government. They wanted to know about who was where at a particular time for it was a terrorist threat. But that wasn't just something, oh yes, I'll spin up a disk and I'll show you the face. That was an incredibly complex way of unraveling anomalized data to get back to the core. So that's the sort of things that we have to be able to demonstrate and to show and to prove that we are not going to exploit people's data unnecessarily.
I guess it's what happens with that data as well. Once it has now been sort of put into a meaningful way, I think we're all more accepting. I think it's just a given that in some way, shape or form, our data is being used in whatever way it might be. But does it drive different behaviours from our retailers, for example, how they engage with us as individual customers, with different demographics and everything else? So, and again, I think that leans into the system, obviously, that you've developed, right, where you can be that much more targeted and pinpoint.
Well, I mean, there's a demand from customers. I actually want to walk in the store and be recognised.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go and buy some wine, I want the owner of that shop to know I'm in the store, and I want him to be promoting the hell out of me. I want him to be welcoming me. I want him to say, look, you bought this last time, Mike, and if you buy an extra bottle, I'll do this for you. I want to be promoted to. I want to be sold to. Now, I don't want that information sharing with everybody outside of that environment, but I want to go in and I want to be treated in a particular way. And store colleagues don't have necessarily all the time in the world to share with everybody at every pinpoint time of their shopping experience. And digital is the only way in which you're going to get an immersive and positive and actually something that you can execute on. So, have I got it in stock? Yes. Right. Promote. Who's in? Is it the right demographic? Does he? Don't promote, a Malbec to me if I'm a Pinot Noir buyer. It's that sort of thing. It's relevant, because otherwise I'll go, why are you promoting me something I've never drunk?
We've been through that, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've been through that. We've been through the playlist suggestions that just aren't relevant. No,
correct. And it gets you turn off to it.
Yeah. Great stuff. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Be sure to tune in to part 1 of this 2-part special from the Retail Exchange podcast on the future of digital signage. And if you want to hear even more about Samsung KX, check out the interview series for my exclusive interview with Samsung KX Director of Showcase, Tanya Weller. You can find all of our podcast episodes at theretailexchange.co.uk or on your favourite podcast app. Until next time, I've been Jason Bradbury from Samsung KX here in London. Thanks for listening.